everybody, welcome to those of you who are new to the channel and welcome back those of you who aren't. I am going to be talking today about the ethics in heavy metal. And I thought I would talk about this because I've been thinking a little bit more about talking a little bit more about that end of things, like music and how it sort of overlaps with, my practice a little bit and ethics and things. And I saw an article recently that was talking about how psychologists had kind of studied, does the music you listen to affect your sense of morality or ethics? And the study said that yes, it does. Now, the article did not go into a lot of specifics. I was like, okay, well, but what ethics? Like, what does it do? Like, I was like, okay, tell me more about this. But it did get me thinking about it, and I thought, yeah, it seems that certain genres of musics have certain ethics. Now, this is very broad. There are always going to be exceptions, of course. But I sat down and I kind of gave it some thought because I think that it definitely has influenced the ethics that I have as a person. And I don't have to agree with, every person that I listen to, or like music wise, or the books I read or whatever. But I think that, it just overall sort of has an effect on us, and effect on, the values that we have. And so I have been listening to, metal and like hard rock for a long time, since way back when I was wee in the 80s and all the way till now. So, I've heard a lot of it. And it's definitely part of my life, and so it can't help but seep into the way I am a little bit. Now, I'm not gonna, I can't comment really a lot on other genres because I don't know them super well. I'm not an expert. I'm not here to talk about that, but I will talk about heavy metal. And I was thinking about how it has a lot of correlations with the ethics of Stoicism in some ways. And Stoicism and many of the older sort of, Hellenistic Greek philosophies do go back to sort of Aristotle, and some of the ethics there, which are the four main ethics are courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. Now, we can say, especially listening to 80s heavy metal, that temperance is not one of those virtues that's really espoused in, hard rock and metal. But I would say like courage and justice are extremely important in heavy metal. So if you look at bands like, Judas Priest, you can't help but listen to them. Like, so I had a friend listen to them, and she was like, not someone who usually listens to metal. And she's like, oh, I listened to this and I feel like I could do anything. I feel so powerful. And I think that courage is really emphasized in heavy metal. And I use Judas Priest as an example. But if you go and you listen to albums like Firepower or like Painkiller or, British Steel or Screaming for Vengeance or anything, you see the emphasis of courage in those kinds of, in the lyrics and in that kind of music. And I think also like in the actions that, people take, because part of courage is also like doing what's right even when it's difficult. And one of the other ethics I think that really comes out in heavy metal is speaking truth to power. The importance of pointing out injustices or pointing out things that aren't right. And so you have things like back in the 80s, there was congressional hearings in the United States about, should lyrics be posted in albums? Should parents have access to that? Should there be censorship of music? And Dee Snider from Twisted Sister actually testified and was talking about the importance of, you have to know what your children is listening to and you have to be a parent. But they accused Twisted Sister of having a t-shirt with like a woman on it, like being walked like a dog. And he was like, that t-shirt doesn't exist. Like, show me that t-shirt. And of course they couldn't. And he was like, that t-shirt doesn't exist because like we would never make that. And, we make music for everybody to listen to. And so just being able to speak truth to power. And I think they were also shocked that he was like so well-spoken and smart and he knew what he was talking about. And to me, that's like, shows courage and also the importance of truth and speaking your truth. And even if other people don't always, like that or don't always accept that, right? Or maybe it's not always what they want to hear. So the importance of like truth is really important, I think, in heavy metal. I think also justice as well. You know, you can't help but listen to, you know, if you listen to bands like Metallica, you know, especially some of their earlier work, and it really speaks to injustices and talking about that. I mean, they have an album called Injustice for All. Even like their, not the most recent album, but the last album, it, you know, so you watch some of the videos and stuff, and, you know, it talks about like, you know, soldiers and PTSD and things. um you know, these are things that, you know, aren't really being covered in like pop music, right? Like they're sort of these issues that they're talking about. And so the importance of like courage and justice is something that's really, I think, emphasized in heavy metal. Also learning from history too. You know, if you listen to a band like Iron Maiden, they reference a lot of things in history, you know, and mythology, and it's important to learn from those things, to learn from history, to look at the past and learn from it, and not just think that it's not relevant. And again, that kind of goes back to the whole courage and justice. And so learning from history, I guess that's wisdom, right? Like being able to draw things from the lessons of what's gone before. So, you know, I think it really, those kind of values, you know, are also like the values that I have, right? Like I have those values too. And it was kind of funny. I was, you know, having lunch with some friends, and one of them, she is in her 20s. And I was telling it, we were just talking about like, you know, the schools we went to and things like that when we were younger. And I went to, for those of you who don't know, I went to like a very strict Catholic school. Like, you know, it's not unusual to go to Catholic school, but this was very like religious. Like it was a very religious Catholic school and very, very conservative. And remember, this is like the 80s and very early 90s. So it was very like anti, it was very sexist, and it was also very and like homophobic, a lot of the some of the teachings and things. So I remember we were supposed to have a sex education, which was not such sex education. It was basically they put the guys in one room and the girls in another, and they basically told us girls that not to think about it, and it was just for making babies when you're married, right? And then he started going into how like gay people are evil, and I questioned that, right? Because like I'm not gay, but I was like, if two people love each other, what's the difference? Like, so I put up my hand and I said, you know, how do you know that? And I said also, why did you separate the girls and the boys if you were just going to tell us the same thing? And the priest got so mad at me, and he like yelled at me, and he phoned my house later that evening and continued to yell at me some more. I was taken into the office, and I was told that the only reason he wasn't expelling me was because he liked my dad or whatever. So and meanwhile, people were like, oh, good for you to stand up, and good that you said that, but none of them would speak up and say anything. And so I told this story, and a friend who is younger said, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. How did you know to do that without the internet? She said, you know, when I was younger, I figured out that people thought the same way as me because I went on the internet and I saw it. How did you know? And at first I sort of laughed, but then I also thought like, wait a minute, that's actually a good question, right? Like I can understand if you only grew up with the internet, like how would you know not? But I said, well, I didn't have the internet. I said, but I had heavy metal, which taught me to speak up for like justice, and taught me to like say what's right, and taught me that, you know, sometimes you have to have the courage to stand up and say something. So I think that like, I don't know if people who already have those values listen to heavy metal, or heavy metal gives you those values. I don't know. There was another study too that came out, I think it was like before the pandemic. I think it came out, oh, 2019, maybe it came out in 2020. I'm not sure. But anyway, there was a study in the States that followed about 10,000 kids that were like heavy metal kids from the late 80s, early 90s, and has followed them throughout their lives to kind of see what would happen to them. And they found that while they engaged in riskier activity when they were young, now that they're middle-aged, i.e. me, they found that they were kinder, more empathetic, and better psychologically adjusted than their non-heavy metal listening peers. And so as they said, the question became, do kind people listen to heavy metal, or does heavy metal make people kinder? And I wonder, maybe it's a bit of both, right? I think too, heavy metal also emphasizes it's a culture of community. Like it's a culture of we stick together, we help each other, because I think a lot of us grew up being sort of like a bit of an outcast, or being the only one that maybe listened to heavy metal, or being misunderstood. So when we find other people that listen to it, we're like, hey, we're connected, right? So I think there's a bit of that. Now, I can't comment about other forms of music because I'm not an expert on them. But I'm curious for you, do you think the type of music you listen to contributes to your ethics, contributes to your sense of morals? Or do you think that your ethics kind of influence what kind of music you listen to? Like, again, I think it's about like it's a bit of an egg and a chicken argument, right? Um, what kind of music do you listen to, and what kind of ethics do you think that your kind of music has? I would be really, really curious to see. Also, if you are someone like me who's a metalhead, are there any other values that you think that heavy metal has, or maybe you disagree with me? I don't know. Let me know what you think, but I definitely think it's an interesting subject. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Again, just thank you to everybody for watching me and for all of your comments. Please like and subscribe. Thank you to my patrons. You guys are amazing. I just, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing things. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you want to check out my Patreon, you definitely can in the linkies below. And if you want a reading from me, you can check out my Etsy shop. As always, just thank you so much for being here. Also, you can go sign up for my free monthly astrology headline newsletter on my website, and check out my weekly blog too. I would love that. Anyway, doing all the plugs, right? You gotta do at the end. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. You guys are the best. And as always, peace and love and rock.